Put your seatbelts on and get ready for the ride. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
Hello, welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today is Wednesday, March 19th. Hopefully everybody's having a good day so far today. This is episode 512 of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast. I thank you, as always, for joining me. For those tuning in on YouTube, make sure to please like and subscribe. Of course, appreciate all of those tuning in on all the different audio podcast platforms where the show can be found. And today we've got a lot to discuss involving the New York Jets and the 2025 NFL Draft. I want to break down two mock drafts by two NFL draft analysts, Mel Kiper and Daniel Jeremiah. And I also want to get into a report from Rich Cimini on Jaxson Dart and the Jets' interest level on him heading into April and the draft just about a month and a half from now. Late episode today. Apologies for that, but still getting some content out for all of those tuning in. Appreciate you. As always, before we begin, we've got to tell you about our podcast partners, starting with our friends over at BetUS, America's favorite online sportsbook. March Madness starts tomorrow, or if you're listening to this on Thursday, today. Get your brackets in, first of all, but also if you want to place some money on a favorite going all the way, or are you going all in on a Cinderella story, you can do it all over at BetUS. Check it out. Use my link in the description of this video to get a 125% sign-up bonus on your first three deposits up to $2,000. Also, our friends over at SeatGeek, if you're looking to secure any of the best tickets at best value for any sporting events or the best in entertainment, check them out and use code BUBSONSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. And of course, our friends over at Huga House, if you want any of their new arrival hats or sweatshirts along with originals, check them out. Code BUBS for 15% off any purchase at checkout. You'll get 30% off your second purchase when you use that code BUBS on your first purchase. Check them out and get yourself some awesome Huga House swag. So here we go, episode 512. And today I wanted to break down some more New York Jets draft talk today. Obviously, we had our mock draft Monday video go up on Monday. It was the Tyler Warren edition. And today I want to dive a little bit more into Tyler Warren. Also take a look at right tackle Armand Membou, who has been linked to the Jets. A lot of Jet fans have been rallying around the possibility of Membou being brought in as the 7th overall pick. So we'll get to that here in a second as well. But I want to start with Tyler Warren. Mel Kiper, of course, NFL draft analyst, reveals his weekly mock draft and did his post-free agency mock draft along with Daniel Jeremiah, but we're starting with Kiper here first. And he had the New York Jets, of course, sitting there at 7th overall, taking Tyler Warren. And I don't think that should come as much of a surprise from a post-free agency perspective, because outside of adding Stone Smart, you look at the Jets tight end room and really receiving core as a whole, receivers as a whole, pass catchers as a whole, outside of Garrett Wilson, there's a lot of holes. They signed Tyler Johnson. Yeah, they added Stone Smart, but both of those guys you don't expect to come in and do a lot of damage. Smart is more of a development depth guy, while Tyler Johnson's most likely a wide receiver 4 with maybe wide receiver 3 upside. So you're not really making two big signings. It's two cheap contracts on young players with upside. You still have massive holes. And Tyler Warren fills a massive need, not only as a pass catcher, but of course his ability as a run blocker too, just as an all-around tight end. And here was Mel Kiper's sort of expert here, or reasoning behind the Tyler Warren pick. He said, I like the idea of giving new quarterback signing Justin Fields help, and it would come in the form of pass protection or a playmaker. Missouri's Armand Membu would fit nicely at right tackle opposite Olu Fashanu, and that's one potential path for the Jets if the board falls this way. But consider how the Jets could use Warren. At Penn State, Warren lined up in just about every imaginable formation, and he produced from all of them. He's special with the ball in his hands, accumulating 700 of his 1,233 yards last season after the catch. He would be a reliable safety value over the middle, a seam stretcher, and a red zone target for Fields. That was Kiper on Tyler Warren. And I personally like Tyler Warren. I've said this a lot. I think at number 7 for me, the guys that I'm looking at, the guys that I would be okay with the Jets taking, I like Membu a lot. We've talked about him a little bit on this show. I'll have a full Membu mock draft edition probably coming up next Monday. We'll talk about him here in a second, but I like Membu a lot. I like Warren a lot. I like Tech McMillan. Those kind of are like the 3 guys it feels like you can't go wrong with from a Jet perspective. You either get a receiver, you either get tight end help, or you find your right tackle, the future, opposite of Olu, of course, and you put together what is really a good-looking offensive line. But from just Warren himself, right, you just looked at some of the numbers there that I read from Kiper, right? His ability across the middle, I think, is super impressive as a pass catcher. His ability in the red zone, I think, is also super impressive and something that should be taken into account big time from a Jet perspective, because this is a team that has struggled in the red zone in the last couple of seasons, especially from a tight end perspective. Tyler Conklin did not have a very easy time, did not find the end zone much during his time with the Jets. And he is still available. We'll see what happens there. But overall, Warren last season, 104 receptions, tied for second in the nation, 1,233 yards, second among tight ends, and had 8 touchdowns, which is tied for third among tight ends. And, you know, again, this is a guy that is coming into a system where can be a safety blanket for Justin Fields, but also enters a system in Tanner Engstrand, which is why I think taking Warren can be that much more intriguing, because he comes into a system where Engstrand is coming from Detroit, where they have Sam Laporta, one of the better tight ends in the NFL, and use him not only as a pass-catching threat, a major pass-catching threat, but he is a big piece in that David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs running back duo as a blocker. And Warren would come in and fit that similar billing, fit that similar offensive scheme as a pass catcher and as a run blocker, fill both those needs. He had a 91.3 overall Pro Football Focus grade last year, a 93.4 receiving grade, a 61.9% contested catch rate, just a 2.8% drop rate. Some other numbers that I think are pretty impressive. He had 19 missed tackles forced, which was second among tight ends last year. He had 5 deep catches, which was tied for 9th among tight ends with 25 plus targets. And he also had 13 contested catches, which was 3rd. I think the biggest thing you look at Warren as a critique would not a great route runner. And he does not have a very large route tree. Those are 2 things that he'd have to work on. But other than that, I think the strengths certainly outweigh the positives. And the biggest question for the Jets with Tyler Warren is how high do they value him over the other tight ends? A Terrence Ferguson, a Harold Fanyard Jr. How high are you on Jackson Halls from a run blocking perspective? There's of course, a lot of long list. Mitchell Evans from Notre Dame as well. There's a long list of tight ends. It's a pretty deep tight end class at that. So the biggest question will be, where do the Jets compare Warren to these other guys? Do they feel the drop-off between Warren and, let's say, a Harold Fanyard Jr. out of Bowling Green? Is that big? If they do, you take Warren. If they don't, then fine, you wait till day 2. Only time will tell. So that was Mel Kiper's mock. Tyler Warren to the Jets, which I could certainly see and I'd be on board with. We talked about that, of course, on Monday. Now, Armand Membu is one that I think is clearly picking up steam and feels very, very possible. When you look at Membu skyrocketing up draft boards here for the Jets, and Daniel Jeremiah's excerpt on Membu, his reasoning behind it was pretty clear. Membu slides in at right tackle for the Jets. His size, physicality, and athleticism would make him a great fit. Not much else needs to be said there. I think that perfectly fits what Membu would bring to the table here for the Jets. 6'4", 332 pounds junior, spent 3 seasons at Missouri. And what I love most about Membu, and I love the idea of why I would totally be on board with taking him at number 7, right? I kind of have those 3 guys that'd be okay with McMillan, be okay with Warren, Membu, all on board. Mason Graham as well, right? If you want to go the defense around and find that interior presence next to Quinnen. What I love about Membu, he plays right tackle. Plays right tackle. Slots in day one, your right tackle of the future. You don't have to go out and bring in a left tackle and have him learn and switch positions. No. He's played 307 snaps in 2022 at right tackle, played all 857 snaps in 2023 at right tackle, and last year, out of 801 snaps, 800 of them came at right tackle with just 1 coming at left guard. This is a pure right tackle who can step in right away and fill the void, or really fill the void for the future, really. And come in and slot right away over Max Mitchell, Carter Warren, even Chuck Okafor as well. 3 guys that you don't love the idea of starting. Membu brings a lot to the table that I think you really like. I think the athleticism with Membu flies off the charts. I want to read some of his next-gen stats, his score breakdown from the combine and just overall. Had a production score of 84, according to next-gen stats, which is 4th among all offensive tackles. His athleticism is what flies off the charts. 94 athleticism score, which is 1st among every single offensive tackle in this draft. His total next-gen stats score breakdown is an 85, which is 3rd. I mean, his athleticism, his combine, all very impressive. You watch the tape, very impressive. His ability in pass protection and run and run blocking are 2 good things. He's a balanced right tackle that can do both very well. Very good hands and body control, specifically in pass pro. And you just look at some of the numbers too, right? I gave you some of those athleticism numbers. You look at his PFF page, it's beautiful. 90.6 overall grade, an 87.6 run blocking grade, an 86.6 pass blocking grade, 87.4 zone blocking grade, 76.7 gap grade, and an 82.2 true pass set pass block grade. All in the top percentile among offensive tackles in college football last year with at least 250 plus blocking snaps. I mean, the guy does a lot of, he's electric. He's phenomenal. He only allowed 3 sacks in his entire career. 0 sacks allowed in 12 starts last year with Missouri. He did not allow a single quarterback hit in his entire career. And just 23 quarterback hurries in his 3 years at Missouri. Well-rounded, plays right tackle, steps in right away, a freak athlete. The one thing about Membu, he is a little bit smaller for a right tackle at just 6'4", and he would need to work on bull rushers. Those speed rushers coming at him can sometimes throw him off balance a little bit. NFL bull rushers, that would be something that he'd have to learn and grow with. But similar to Warren, the positives certainly outweigh the negatives. He, I think, should be amongst a lot of Jet fans' top of the list from a number 7 overall perspective. Playing right tackle in college at that high of a level and coming in here and playing right tackle, not having to switch from left to right, is a huge deal. And he's only skyrocketing with a very good combine. The Jets need there, right? You kind of went into this wondering if they would need a right tackle, or if they would just bring back Moses and then take somebody in the middle rounds to sit behind him. No, they need a starting right tackle. Membu can do that day number 1. So that was Daniel Jeremiah's mock. 2 guys that I think a lot of Jet fans can get on board with. I think most can agree. I don't think if you're a Jet fan, you can walk away from draft night. If as we're sitting here doing a recap right after they draft either Warren or Membu, I don't think you can be upset with either of those guys. I think You're going to be happy with both. And I also say this just going back to Warren, because I know there's a lot of people out there that are like, oh, well, the Jets didn't draft Warren last year. It's totally different. Different set of circumstances, didn't draft Warren last year. Rather, didn't draft Bowers last year. Apologies. Different set of circumstances. Two different players, too. And I will also say this, it's a different regime. Just because a past regime, a different regime last year didn't take a tight end, doesn't mean a brand new regime with potentially a new vision on the roster and also a new hole on the roster. Like going into last year, Conklin was still serviceable. We don't have Conklin right now. So the hole at tight end is also much larger right now than it was going into last season's draft with Brock Bowers. I will never understand you didn't take Brock Bowers last year, so you can't take Tyler Warren this year. It doesn't make sense. It's two different regimes, number one. And it's also two different just teams right now, two different rosters, two different spots the Jets are in than they were this time last year. So I'll throw that out there too. It doesn't, people are like, oh, you didn't take Bowers, so you can't take Warren. No, that doesn't make sense. So what? We're now going to sit here we're going to say the Jets can never take a tight end because they didn't draft didn't draft Brock Bowers last year. That doesn't add up. You can come up with arguments why you might not want Tyler Warren. That's not a good argument. So wanted to throw that out there as well. Now moving on with the theme of this show, which is a draft-centric show here. A lot of draft stuff coming out here post-free agency, of course. Last week with most of these moves going down. We heard some more steam around Jaxson Dart. Here's a Rich Cimini report from earlier today in an article on ESPN. He said the addition of Fields, $30 million guaranteed, won't preclude the Jets from drafting a quarterback. If they have a strong conviction, they won't hesitate to pull the trigger at any point in the draft. There's a lot of Jets buzz, that's the key part of this article here, are surrounding Ole Miss quarterback Jaxson Dart. Interesting that this comes up now about the Jets and buzz around Jaxson Dart, because I made a video on this about a month ago. Actually, February 17th, I made a video on this. I also wrote an article on this, and I linked all my articles down below. So if you want to get some more insight on this as well, you can. But Cimini had an article out earlier in February about Rick Spielman, of course, the new addition to the Jets front office, really liking Jaxson Dart. At the time, he was still on a CBS Sports podcast, really liking Jaxson Dart coming out of the Senior Bowl. And I want to throw some of these quotes up here on the Jets being interested, because that was like the first nugget on Dart was what Spielman had to say. At the time, he wasn't hired by the Jets, but that was after the Senior Bowl. He gave his thoughts on Dart, and then a few weeks later, the Jets hired him, and now you're hearing about a month later that there's still a lot of buzz around the Jets and Dart, and it feels like they like him. I think there probably is some of that might be Spielman's voice on things, throwing his name out there, and obviously I also think Muji's background with Denver could also have some impact on this with the way Bo Nix skyrocketed up draft boards last year. Denver took a chance on him. At the time, not many people loved the idea of taking him as early as they did. Of course, it panned out. Not saying that's what's going to happen with Dart, but there's a lot of connections to what the Jets might be thinking and Jaxson Dart, the prospect himself. So I want to throw some of these quotes up here from Rick Spielman after the Senior Bowl. He said, quote, "I like Jaxson Dart a lot, better and better," Spielman said on the podcast at the conclusion of the Senior Bowl practices. "It just looks like the position comes natural to him." He praises Dart's arm talent, saying it was more impressive in person than on tape. He said Dart had the smoothest, quickest release of any quarterback at the Senior Bowl. Spielman glowed about his intangibles, especially his toughness, leadership, and intelligence. "I came away impressed," he said. This was more Spielman on Dart, and also some of the Bo Nix stuff as well, which ties into Muji. "I'm going to say this," Spielman said. "I don't know if there's another first-round quarterback after the first two, but the way Bo Nix started to surge last year coming out of this game, I would not be surprised if Dart ends up in the first round." Of course, Nix was a late riser who wound up being drafted 12th by the Denver Broncos. The Jets own the 7th and 42nd picks. 7 probably is too high for Dart, and 42 might be too low. So it would require some maneuvering if they target Dart. And that could be a possibility, right? I think the idea of the Jets, even with the signing of Fields, right? I think we all realize Fields is a stopgap signing with the potential of, who knows, maybe you run into your Sam Darnold, like with the Vikings, where this guy goes out, tears it up. Now, different with Darnold because he does end up, obviously going to Seattle now, but maybe you run into like your Baker Mayfield with Tampa and he finds a home here. Even Geno with Seattle prior to going to Vegas, one of these guys that didn't pan out and then he finds a home. That would be great. But I think we all agree the most realistic path for Fields is probably play here for a year and then some rookie takes over next season, unless if Fields takes off, which would be awesome. But realistically, that's probably the plan. That's probably what will happen. And I think there's a real possibility that maybe the Jets do try and trade back into the first for Dart. So then you pick up that 5th-year option. And we've seen teams do that before, trading back into the first for a quarterback. And I think that could be the Jets' approach. Trade back in. Baltimore did it with Lamar. Trade back in late first so that you can get the 5th-year option and you give him an extra year to potentially develop. And who knows, maybe he turns into something. I don't think you take him at 7. Now, there's been some crazy, crazy mock drafts that we've seen where Dart, some people now actually have going before Shedeur, and some people have Shedeur even falling out of the first round. We went from Cam Ward and Shedeur being the 2 only first-round quarterbacks to now some people feeling like it's Cam Ward and Dart, and Shedeur might fall out, which I don't see happening. I think if anything, there will be 3 instead of 2. I think Ward and Shedeur will still get taken sometime in the first. I think Ward probably number 1. Obviously, he's the consensus. And then it'll probably be Dart maybe being the 3rd. But who knows? Who knows? I'd be okay with Dart. I do. I like Dart. I wouldn't take him at 7. But can you tell me you take him on day 2 or trade back into the first? Would I be on board with that? I can understand that. And I wouldn't be necessarily surprised. And I'm still not very surprised. And I still think this is interesting that there's got to be clear buzz there because you got these quotes from Rick Spielman last month, right, about his impressions on Dart. He then gets hired by the Jets. And then you also get Muji, right, coming from Denver, where he saw them take a chance on a late riser last year, and Bo Nix feels Dart's rise and Nix's rise feel very, very similar. Very similar. Spielman, Muji, I could certainly see this happening. The Jets and Dart have sort of had this connection now for about a month. And only time will tell, of course, if this really goes down. Dart himself, right? We know the arm strength, the accuracy, it's all there. The biggest question with Dart and why he would benefit from sitting a year, and I think what separates him from being that day 1 home run pick as opposed to a late day 1 or a day 2 sit and develop, is the offense he's coming from in Ole Miss is nowhere close to an NFL offense. It's a lot of predetermined reads, 1-read plays, and when he faces pressure, he struggles. 2 things in the NFL that can't happen. You've got to be able to handle pressure, and you're not going to be running plays in an NFL offense where you have 1 read, predetermined reads. Those things are have to adjust. Lane Kiffin's offense in Ole Miss is not necessarily the most quarterback NFL development friendly. It works in college, but you got to take a big step once you get to the NFL. Dart would have to do that. But he is coming off of a year. He got better in each of his 4 years, especially over the 3 years at Ole Miss. Right, won 2 of his 3 bowl games. And last year put up career highs in pretty much everything. 69.3 completion percentage, career high. 4,279 yards, career high. 10.8 yards per completion, career high. 29 touchdowns, 6 picks. Well, it's 29 touchdowns, career high. And a 180.7 passer rating, also a career high. So, Dart to the Jets. You can understand the steam. When you take a look at the background, you connect the pieces. I think you could totally understand why the Jets and why there's buzz around Dart and why it is a potential realistic option even without Fields. I think some people have started to lose sight of still taking a quarterback this year at some point to sit behind Fields and Tyrod just because of the Fields signing. But I don't think that Fields signing, of course, like Samini said, should take away from any of that. This is still a team that could potentially draft a quarterback, Dart being that guy. You bring him in, let him sit, develop, and then potentially have your option moving forward. Who knows? So let me know what you think in the comment section down below about those three players. Your thoughts on potentially drafting Tyler Warren or Armand Membu, and your thoughts on Jaxson Dart and the Jets. Buzz between the Dart and the Jets. Dart and the Jets, not the Dart. Dart and the Jets, there's buzz. They've been linked. Only time will tell if he ends up in green and white once all said and done in Detroit at the NFL draft. So let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Talk to you guys soon. A lot more content coming your way as always. And until next time, Jets, 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 Jets.